Hi, welcome to Tea with Tehmina. This is my show and our place to chat all about the things to do with women, society, and commerce. Join me as every week I take the opportunity to sit down with incredible women doing incredible things, always with a cup of tea. Well, today I am actually having a Ceylon Black, and this strong tea just reminds me of having the opportunity to sit back and think about things. But talking about thinking, today's episode of Tea with Tehmina focuses on the Kalso movement. Now, the Kalso movement is a fantastic youth-run Malaysian NGO that actually focuses on bridging the education inequity gap all around Malaysia. And today we will be sitting down with two of their incredible young women to talk about all things Kalso movement and also about how we can get a little bit more involved, being aware about education inequality, how it impacts young women's lives, and what can be done about it comprehensively. So for starters, let's bring in Dr. Hannah Nasri. She is chair of the board of trustees with the Kalso movement and is also currently pursuing her doctorate at the University of Oxford in England. And in fact, that's where she's joining us from today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Tehmina, for inviting me to have tea with you. Mm-hmm. I'm having my Earl Grey today, so cheers.
All right, brilliant. Cheers. So I cheers with my black Ceylon tea. All right, Dr. Hannah, so really good to see you again, albeit digitally. But however, let's get started off by you telling me a little bit in a nutshell what the Kalso movement is all about and what attracted you back in your earlier student days to actually become a part of it.
So the Kalso movement is a student-led charity based in Malaysia. And it started in 1994 as Project Kalso Motivational Camp. In 2011, I became the project director of Project Kalso, and my team and I decided that this is such a great project. Let's formalize it into the charity that we now know today. So the aim is to end the poverty cycle through education. And so we empower the 16-year-old students from less privileged backgrounds so that they can build a narrative for their career choices in the future. And we have the Malaysian university students mentoring them. And in doing so, in organizing the projects for the Kalso movement, they gain leadership and organizational skills, which are important for their career, of course, and also becoming more aware of the educational inequality landscape in Malaysia. So previously in 1994, you only have the Project Kalso Motivational Camp. We since have revisit workshops. So it's not just a one-off project. Post Project Kalso, the students will be visited by their mentors, and then they will be encouraged to organize their own Project Kalso in their schools. So to complete the Kalso cycle, so to speak, when they go to university, they come back and volunteer with the Kalso movement and join the Kalso alumni.
Right. So I love the fact that the Kalso movement focuses on mentorship as a part of the education ecosystem that early on. And from there, let's move on into the fact that the Kalso movement is also made up of volunteers to what's been happening in the Malaysian ecosystem with regards to youth empowerment. We just had our first digital parliament that was organized by a couple of youth-led organizations where education inequality was actually one of the big focus issues, particularly for the MP representatives from the youth from East Malaysia. I wanted to ask you, Dr. Hannah, tell me how the Kalso movement has been working actively already within this arena, bridging education inequality, particularly for our girls.
So, yes. So the Kalso movement is entirely made by volunteers, and we rely on the goodwill of these volunteers to continue this project. No one is paid. And for me, like when I joined in 2011 as a medical student, I found that incredibly amazing. I was thinking to myself, what motivated a group of Malaysian students in the UK to come back during the summer and mentor these students? Really, their motivation is purely because of they want to help younger underprivileged students in Malaysia. And actually, we're not doing anything extraordinary. We are just mentoring younger students. And this is a powerful motivator for them. They might go to schools where they don't have role models that they can emulate. They might want to be doctors, but don't know how. So we equip them with the skills or with the narrative that they can build themselves for their career choices. And Carlsum is a place where all the students can call home. So if you look at our Carlsum alumni, it's a home for the facilitators, the committee members, and also the students, regardless of which schools they go to. And you may doubt the power of good school alumni. And actually, as we know everywhere, you can see all the leaders of the country come from certain schools. In the UK and in Malaysia as well. So I hope that the Carlsum alumni will be a place where these students can network and build their relationships and better their lives, essentially.
Exactly. But I think one thing that I would really love to commend the Carlsum movement on is the fact that you seem to be definitely moving away from the elitist model, which comes with utterly exclusive schools. In fact, you had mentioned in one of your talks how you and your sister volunteered in one of the programs at a village in Terengganu. And what were some of the visible disparities in education access that you were able to see over there? And how can that actually change in the long run for Malaysia?
So what is very apparent, of course, is the lack of infrastructure. So they might not have internet access. So with this pandemic, it's quite a big issue for these kids, really, because without good internet access, they're not able to continue their education as compared to those in Kuala Lumpur. But before we actually just compare rural areas and those in the city, we have to be aware there's also hidden poverty in Kuala Lumpur itself. A UNICEF 2018 study actually found out that those who live in low-cost housing and the People's Home Project in Kuala Lumpur suffer from a higher rate of malnutrition and lack of educational opportunity as compared to their peers in Ghana. And bear in mind, Malaysia's GDP is obviously higher than Ghana. So this is a huge problem as well, and it shouldn't be overlooked. Basically, when I volunteered in Terengganu, I realized that they are not aware of the scholarships that are available. They don't know how to apply for them. They don't have anyone from their schools going to these careers or have won a particular scholarship. So this is where the Carlsum movement comes in and tell them, look, the reason why you're studying is because that you can be this. But to let you become someone that you want to be in the future, like a doctor, we can help you apply for these scholarships. We can choose the best scholarships for you.
Exactly, being the backbone and the background as well.
Absolutely.
So Dr. Hannah, thank you so much so far. I'll actually bring you back in a little bit later. And if you're just joining us, you're on Tea with Tehmina with me, Tehmina Kausji, and this is the show where we talk about all the issues surrounding women, society, as well as commerce. So from there, we bring in Natasha Ariza, who is the head of sponsorship with the Carlsum movement, to discuss with us a little bit deeper what they do on the ground and what it looks like to be a student, but at the same time also volunteering with this awesome NGO. Natasha, hey.
Hi Tehmina, how are you?
I'm great. So Natasha, what's your brew of the day before we get started?
I decided to go with a classic old black tea, Malaysia's.
All right. Very nice. Okay, so I've got my Ceylon black, you've got your black tea, and I wanted to ask you all about your new journal article, Paying It Forward, where you talked about technology access and it being good if one can access it. Now, we've seen a couple of new cases in Malaysia, in particular, Viviana Mosbin, the Sabahan student who actually had to spend the night up in a tree for internet access. Tell us about what the Carlsum movement aspires towards with regards to internet access as a way of bridging education inequality.
Okay. That is the issue here, isn't it? That there are still villages today in Malaysia without basic human needs, such as electricity. I like to believe that today, electricity and a stable internet connection has become quite basic human needs. And just to firstly disclaim, not to overshoot ourselves, but Carlsum is not an organization that has the power on a national scale to provide electricity to an entire village. But we do try our best. And I guess there's something that we can all learn from how we just decided to do our recent camps, because obviously, due to the pandemic, it is not possible for us to do our yearly in-person camps where the kids come and then we hold them for 5, 6, 7 days over the course. And over the course of the entire time, we have around 80 people in one spot. So due to the MCO, that was not possible. So we revamped our camps to e-camps, where everything was done remotely online. But understanding that the problem was that our beneficiaries are from B40 families. Access to Wi-Fi as well as a device is not something everyone has. So Kalsom partnered with YTL Foundation at the time to provide free mobile data and online learning materials to all students in registered Malaysian government schools. So these materials are something that they can bring home as well after the camp. Of course, it doesn't solve all problems like Viviana Musibin, because her challenge was electricity itself. And
that's right. So there's also a way to start doing the work on the ground. And from there, Natasha, I want to ask you, so as a student yourself still, what have been some of the great things about joining an NGO this young? And why do you feel that it's also important for students of your age to be not only aware, but to be actionably involved in solving social issues?
Well, I think that because that's the only time you have, isn't it? When you're in university, say, because when you're working, you don't have that much time. When you're in university as well, you're discovering new things. You're no longer confined by the privileges or the environment you had growing up. You get out of your own bubble, you learn other experiences, and you decide a lot of things, whether it's your mindset, your views, or your stances. And that pretty much sets the foundation for the person you grow up to be. So we end up using that energy and we invest our time to a lot of things. And for me personally, I decided to do charity or organizations and help the causes like Kalsom does. Because the good, I feel like the good you do is reflected back to you. And whatever you learn, you help people with, you become more grounded, you become more contented because you see people being happy with so little. And it redefines the value of happiness. And I think that's something students can really, really learn if they were to just join one camp, really.
Right. Strong message there. Natasha, thank you. And if you're just joining us on Tea with Tehmina, this is our place to chat about all things women, society, and commerce. Today's big topic is the Kalsom movement, a Malaysian student-run NGO that actually addresses the core of education inequality around Malaysia. And now I'm actually going to bring in both panelists and we're going to have a chat about some more focused core issues surrounding education inequity and women and girls. Let's bring them back in now, Dr. Hannah as well as Natasha.
Hi.
Hello again. So moving into women and girls, Dr. Hannah, I want to ask you this. Now, data shows that girls are the most likely to become stuck in a cycle of poverty, especially if that's the background that they come from, which can even be furthered by teenage pregnancy and ending up in child marriage. How is access to education actually the proven bridge for breaking such cycles?
So ideally, child marriage should be banned. And we know that child marriage is prevalent in poor families. And this often spells an end to the child's education. To ensure that a child stays in school, we have to look at all factors. So we have to look at the cost of child marriage. And usually this is because the family cannot afford to sponsor the child in the family and therefore marry them off because it'll be the husband's responsibility. So really we need to ensure that the family's basic needs are met. And we have to incentivize families to ensure that their girls will stay in school. And there must be monetary incentive and also education. We have to point out to them that you have to educate girls and boys and how education can break this cycle of poverty. And secondly, it's not just any form of education. What's also important is sexual education. I'm not talking about sex itself and knowing that sex equals to pregnancy, but also the awareness of what is appropriate and inappropriate touch. And many times we hear stories about children being raped by their grandfather or by their family members, and it's because they don't know what sex is. They don't know what is an appropriate touch. And alongside with sexual education, we have to make them aware of the dangers of sexting, of porn, and if they're accidentally pregnant, they have to know who they can contact at school, who can they reach out. And many times these girls feel so alone, and they might do other things like dumping the baby, which is obviously very wrong. And teachers should be trained to support these girls. And if not, the government should provide school counselors who are equipped to handle this situation. And of course, the Khalsa movement does not exactly go into these areas per se, but we believe that alongside with those things, like role models are absolutely very important. They need to see what is possible in flesh. They need to hear it firsthand from their mentors that this is possible. They need to see girls around them who become doctors, engineers. So we make them see.
So from there, I'll cut in and I'll ask Natasha, moving into you. Natasha, tell me about what the experience of being mentored yourself currently even, and also being experienced in giving the mentorship yourself to girls younger than you. What kind of impact has that had on you personally, development-wise, especially with regards to what you'd like to do post-tertiary?
Right. I think personally for me, it gives you this this chance to be a representative to people, for you to be able to say, hey, I came from the same background as you did, and this is what I've come to, and here I am. And really showing them that there are people who has done it before, there are people who have paved the way, and you can follow suit, and you can be that too, and you can be there too. And that really just gives me this sense of achievement almost, because we wish all of us have that kind of mentor in a way. And Khalsa provides that. Khalsa provides that chance to represent and see yourself, your future self, being seeing your future self or the future idea of what you would like to be in the facilitators that you've got in your camps.
Right. So from there, Dr. Hannah, I wanted to ask you about the fact that despite there being many more women in universities in Malaysia, and even they outperform men at the tertiary level, so in maths and science, but at the same time, once you're done with university, the gender pay gap actually becomes a reality of life. And it can be pretty significant in Malaysia. It ranges from 7.1% all the way to even 34.9%, depending on the industry. But at the same time, there's not much awareness around the gender pay gap. What are some of the problems through the life cycle as girls move with similar qualifications, but at the same time, they're not earning the same amount as men are?
One of the factors is obviously because we don't have a work environment that supports mothers. We don't have enough women in the C-suite. So I read that in Sheryl Sandler's Lean-In book about how men at a particular company retreat think that children as their hobbies. So they don't see it as a priority. So if you have more women in higher leadership in companies, then the women concerns about childcare would be addressed. Additionally, the problem with education in Malaysia is that some parents see as university degrees as something to, how do you say this? Yeah, to increase the marriage dowry rates. So it's so that you marry well. So this is a problem as well. And I don't know if you know, like a study conducted by the Ministry of Women's and Family and Community Development in 2014 actually pointed out almost 67% of married women quit their jobs to care for their children or to comply with their husband's wishes that they stop working. So my question is that it's not just the role of the Khalsa movement to actually eradicate this problem. It's everyone's problem, really. I mean, childcare, housework are not work for women to do. It's everyone's. And we should encourage husbands and wives to be real partners. And before anyone looks at me like a crazy feminist, I want you to know that in 2000.
Absolutely not. I mean, come on. But because that's the truth of it, isn't it? When we're talking about education inequality, and when you do get the education that you want, at the end of the day, if you're not able to utilize it, further your career, it really boils down to just plain old gender discrimination. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Dr. Hannah, as well as Natasha, thank you so much for being here with me today on Tea with Tehmina, sharing that little bit more about the CALSO movement. You are just doing some fantastic work, and wishing you both all the best in your roles with the CALSO movement, and of course also with your studies.
Thank you very, very much, Tehmina. It was an honor to be here.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, Dr. Hannah.
Bye.
So with that, I am actually going to enjoy the rest of my cup of Ceylon black tea and ponder upon how being literate, being capable of articulation, and how that actually impacts my ability to not only be of service, but to make a difference and change things where things are wrong, where things are inequitable. So do you see now, finally, how essential education is in not only empowering women and girls, but making sure that they're able to do and live their dreams? This has been Tea with Tehmina. Join me again on Thursday, where I take on, once again, issues concerning women, society, and commerce, always with a cup of tea.